They have this nanoscale, so a millionth the size of a grain of sand motor that rotates about 5 times faster than a Formula One engine, and it can build itself on demand in the walls of cells to swim them to where their life is better.
You're blowing my head, man.
So it's a motor with a tail, and that's the way it propels itself.
So in E. coli, it's actually multiple motors that when they're all spinning in the same direction, the filaments bundle together to form a helical propeller, like a sort of submarine propeller, and then that drives the E. coli forwards.
Now, you have found, I mean, that is amazing in itself, but the way these things build themselves, they self-assemble.
Yes, so self-assembly is something that biology does just as an everyday routine, but it's something that we find quite hard to do ourselves. When we build a house, we typically lay it down brick by brick, telling someone where to put every brick. But in biology, you can just throw the bricks together and they'll build themselves. So in the case of the flagellar motor, there's something very special about the little units that make up this motor that means they self-assemble to form fixed rings, the bits that rotate, the rotor, on demand, only in the right time and place. So you can see this is very foreign in that if you took a bag of Lego bricks and shook them up and threw it on the ground, you're never going to see a house spontaneously assemble. But in biology, that's exactly what happens every day. So we worked out exactly what's special about the bricks that does that.
Well, I mean, this just goes to show that nature is way more clever than we are.
Well, it's spent out a long time to get good at it as well.
Right.
We've been doing it for only a few years in the evolutionary scheme of things, but there's been billions of years of evolution to hone this machine down to make it what it is.
So you're in the process of trying to work out how it does it, why it self-assembles.
Yeah, I'd say linking back to sort of my legacy in the place of Dr. Berg. So my supervisor worked for Howard Berg, who discovered they rotate, and then I worked for him. So the first discovery was that they rotate, and then we tried to understand how that happens, and we've come a long way in that line of research. In our generation, it was how exactly do they assemble, because it can form such a precise motor, but it also tolerates a lot of variation. If you make a car engine with 3 pistons instead of 4, it has to run very differently, but bacteria can do it, no worries, and the motor still runs. So we now know how it assembles, and that was the work we recently completed.
Karl, remember recently we were talking about biomimetics.
Yeah,
and
copying nature.
That's right. I was just wondering, is this perhaps a field where we can go down that track and think, how on earth does it do it? Once we understand that, perhaps humans, dare I say, can mimic it.
Sure. Like, I can think of many uses. So, first, I find it amazing. There's actually a real spinning part. If you look at the pictures, there's a rotor and there's a stator, just like an electric motor, and it's a stepper motor. It sort of goes chick, 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 and it can speed up to 50,000 RPM or higher. So how it self-assembles is amazing. But then just think what happens, say, in your drinking glass. Your drinking glass gets a crack and it's got it forever. Wouldn't it be clever if when we made drinking glasses, they could repair the crack? An aeroplane wing could repair a little tiny crack that's forming. So we could build smart machines following what nature has got in front of us over billions of years of evolution. If we can learn these tricks, if you had computer parts that could then rewire themselves to get smarter, but then we're not talking about Skynet, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, and robots with red eyes trying to kill us.
Perhaps something a little more benign, as in, say, organs that could repair themselves.
Oh, if only. Well, yes, our body parts have parts in them in a process called apoptosis, which means literally the falling of the leaves in autumn, where our cells are programmed to die. And if we can go in there, then we don't get our skin getting thinner, the lung function going down, the heart function weakening.
So, Matt, you're saying that most bacteria have this feature?
That's right. So nearly all bacteria that swim have a flagellar motor. So some of them have them at either end of the cell, so it's a push and pull. Some of them have them only at one end, so it's more like a submarine propeller. There are some bacteria that don't swim, but all bacteria that swim have some sort of flagellar motor.
And clearly it's advantageous if you can move around, if you can change environments.
Absolutely. If you can imagine if we were in a room full of hamburgers and we had all the hamburgers near us and none of us could move, we'd eventually starve. But the first one of us that managed to move a little bit further away and eat the new hamburgers will do very well for itself, and their children would again succeed. So that's kind of the evolutionary benefit to being able to move.
But it could help our hearing. The most common invisible or not visible disability in Australia is hearing loss. And what you've got are these little motors backwards. You put in movement and you get electricity. I'm talking about the hairs. And imagine if instead of being stuck with deafness through life, we could go in there and repair it. At the moment, we've got 0 ways of repairing it. But Matt's research, God knows where it'll lead us.
Unfortunately, what you're studying has essentially been appropriated by creationists, which I guess is inevitable because it looks so remarkable as though it has been designed by some higher intelligence, doesn't it?
Perhaps you're right. It should be a compliment, I suppose, to study something so complex that it defies explanation. The appropriation is the right word, though, because definitely they have taken a lot of our research materials and then put a voiceover on it explaining something that's not necessarily true. In the case of the flagellar motor, we now know enough about it that we know it's not a good case of what they were saying, which is irreducible complexity. So complex that no component of it exists elsewhere. We know it doesn't because we know components exist elsewhere in infectious systems, and we do actually probably understand enough of it that it wouldn't be the poster boy for intelligent design that they'd like it to be.